Okay, so shit's done got crazy. We've got troops in Washington. We have a presidential transition happening. Some ridiculous percentage of the number of dollars ever created were created in 2020. Last I checked, it was above 30%. I think it might have broken 50. I hope not. I really hope not. But that means, of course, that we're staring the possibility of hyperinflation in the face. And so we really have to look at currency and money and the way that we're doing things. Now, of course, I did a whole series on personal finance, and you can look that up here on this channel, Personal Finance for Gamers, for those of you who came initially for my podcast or if you're following my Senate campaign. But realistically today, I want to talk about some alternatives that have popped up over the last decade or so that were actually thought up back during the golden age of cyberpunk stories, ironically enough. Crypto. Yeah, the first notion of crypto actually came about in 1983. And the idea was that digitized currency would become a thing. And we all know this is to be the case because, of course, there's Bitcoin and Ethereum and all of the other tokens. And then things like Entropia Universe and Virtuverse have Project Entropia dollars and Aurum, respectively. So what does this mean for us as we look at the possibility of hyperinflation, or hopefully not hyperinflation, but the possibility is there, or at least the devaluation of the fiat currencies across the world, because we're not the only ones doing it, and that might be why the dollar has maintained its value, is because we're not the only ones who have had to do it to keep up. But we are facing a devaluation, a possible devaluation of currency. And just in the last 2 weeks, we saw Bitcoin reach an all-time high of $41,986.37. I believe that was on 8 January around 11 a.m. And this just shows that crypto's here to stay. And while I don't know where it's going to end up, I have the feeling that over time, there's a good possibility it's going to supplant normal fiat currency. And governments are looking at this. They're very concerned over this because control of the currency is control of the economy. And when you decentralize everything, you lose control. And so I'm very curious to see what's happened. A lot of countries have banned crypto. I'm glad that I live in the U.S. We have specifically not banned crypto. We actually have tax rules around it. I'm actually going to go through all that today. Because I personally think, and I am not a financial advisor, I am not giving you financial advice. I personally think that crypto is going to be where we end up in the long run. And it might not be in my lifetime, but I'm beginning to suspect it. It will likely be in our children's lifetime, where the use of your phone and QR codes is how we transact all business. We're navigating the cyberpunk dystopia. This is the Julien McBain Show. The Julien McBain Show is once again brought to you by Toulon. They're not sponsoring me, but they're the background. Okay, so first off, if this is the first time you're seeing my podcast, I want to welcome you to my channel. Those of you who saw my podcast on Aired Out, or my appearance on Aired Out on Facebook, I want to thank you for joining me here. I do go by Julien McBain here. It's my stage name. Everyone who is coming from that knows that my real name is Paul Valorant. You can go check me out on Facebook as well. So let's talk crypto. And the reason that I think crypto is in the long run the future, because I think it is in the long run. I don't see it supplanting the dollar anytime quickly. Not completely. Do I see it starting to possibly replace in the short term? In small amounts, I think it already has. And so here's what crypto is, and I'm going to do some commentary on what crypto is and why I think eventually it is going to become the new currency standard over time. So Dr. Jan Lansky, who's a department head at the University of Finance and Administration, defined crypto as having cryptocurrencies as having 6 specific traits. And they are one, and I pulled these off of Wikipedia. You can go find them there, so you can fact check it if you want to. 1. The system does not require a central authority. Its state is maintained through distributed consensus, which means there's a system built. It's got infrastructure. It's called the blockchain. And there's no central authority that can do things like print extra dollars. You know, you can't print more Bitcoin. There's only one particular way to create more Bitcoin. It's done in very small amounts. This helps prevent inflation. The system keeps an overview of cryptocurrency units and their ownership. So, unlike cash, and I think this is actually kind of a weakness to a certain extent of crypto, unlike cash, it has to be tracked. And it's tracked through a system of wallets, which we'll get into in a little bit. But if you lose the wallet, you lose your coin. Or if the wallet's destroyed, which there are a number of ways. There are paper wallets out there. You destroy the paper wallet, every coin on there is gone, essentially, unless you can recover the wallet number. So the system has to keep track of who owns what tokens. And that's what a cryptocurrency unit is called. It's called a token. Oftentimes they're called Bitcoins or Ethereum or whatever, but they're essentially tokens, and they represent a unit of value. Well, the system has to keep track of who owns which tokens to make sure that when you log on to your exchange or when you go to move it from one wallet to another, you have what you need to do so, and they're still there. And it verifies the number of tokens assigned to that wallet. 3. The system defines whether new cryptocurrency units can be created. If new cryptocurrency units, I'm just going to call them I'm quoting him, so I shouldn't, can be created, the system defines the circumstances of their origin and how to define ownership of these new units. Now, most cryptocurrency is created by mining. Or that's the most common way, I should say. Everyone's heard of Bitcoin mining. This is a series of transactional verifications called proof of work. There are other standards that are used across different cryptos, and I would encourage you to go research them. Coinbase is a wonderful place to do that. I am neither endorsed nor sponsored by Coinbase. That would be cool, though. 4. Ownership of cryptocurrency units can be proved exclusively cryptographically. That's basically what the wallet is. 5. The system allows transactions to be performed in which ownership of cryptographic units, cryptocurrency, can be changed. A transaction statement can only be issued by an entity proving the current ownership of these units. That's really in the reads. I'm not entirely sure how precise I'm getting this definition, but my interpretation of this is when you go to trade tokens. So let's say I decide I am going to I'm going to buy a glass of water, and I'm going to pay for it using my Ethereum. And I program it in, and I say, okay, the water is $2, so I'm going to trade $2 worth of Ethereum to Jack, who's selling me the water. And the transaction takes place, and a transaction statement shows that I transferred those $2 worth of Ethereum to Jack. That's what's needed, and it proves the current ownership moved from me to Jack. And 6, if 2 different instructions for changing the ownership of the same cryptographic units, tokens, are simultaneously entered, the system performs at most one of them, which means that in no way can 2 people own the same token, essentially. So, okay. We have a good understanding of how crypto basically operates. Instead of cash money or precious metals, you have tokens that are recognized on a digital network across a blockchain, which then uses transaction statements in order to verify who owns which tokens and in the amounts that they own them, which are kept on things called wallets, which are a string of numbers and letters, which are infinitely long. For an example, I'll put my Ethereum wallet down in below, just so you can see what it looks like. But I wouldn't say no to a donation. And so by using this series of cryptographic transactions, we can transact business and pseudonymously without having to use existing currencies. And this is why I think tokens might eventually replace the fiat currency, because they retain value better. Bitcoin has only gone up. Oh, no, I can't say that. There have been fluctuations. I know that it skyrocketed to 41,000, then dropped down to 31, and then it rose back up to 37,000. So there's some volatility there, but the volatility is no different from anything else. Again, I am not providing financial advice. Talk to your financial advisor. Bitcoin is the most widely known, but Ethereum is far more commonly used. And I actually have an allegory for Bitcoin versus Ethereum that I think works really well. So Bitcoin is the gold standard, right? It's the first major cryptocurrency that's been out there. It's the most widely known. It's probably the most widely... It's not the most widely traded, but when it comes down to it, everyone knows what Bitcoin is, essentially, right? They've heard of it at least. If Bitcoin is gold, Ethereum is silver. It's worth a fraction of what Bitcoin is. It's a bit more volatile, but it's way more commonly used. And so that's basically how I view the two. If you need an allegory to something easy, Bitcoin is gold and Ethereum is silver. I personally really like the Ethereum blockchain. That's what I trust for a lot of my crypto transactions, is to look at the Ethereum blockchain. I like the smart contracts aspect of it. And I think that smart contract system is going to be used in various other applications in the future. And so that's why I kind of allude Ethereum to silver as opposed to Bitcoin's gold. As I stated before, crypto is generated by mining or validating transactions. Often the value of mining crypto is not enough. The value you get from mining the crypto is not enough to validate the amount you spend to mine it, which I find very ironic and kind of funny, actually. It's sad, but it's funny, because people pour thousands of dollars into mining machines, and then the electricity involved and the heat that they put out, which means you need specialized cooling systems. It's just a lot. And then they get these tiny amounts of Bitcoin. Now, admittedly, this is how they created it. And some of these people are laughing their way all the way to the bank, because they started mining when Bitcoin was worth like 6 cents a token. Now it's worth 41. I think it's currently at 37,000 per token. My phone, which has my exchange, is over there, and I'm not going to go get it. But it's amazing. It's really amazing just how far they've come. And a lot of these miners are laughing their way all the way to the bank, and they should be, because they put the effort forth early, they took the risk, and they got the rewards for it. So good for them. Speaking of mining is usually done using high-level graphics cards. I know that back in 2017 and 2018, when I worked for Best Buy, in fact, graphics cards couldn't be found because miners were snatching them up as fast as they could be manufactured. We had a back order of the GTX 1080 graphics cards, because as soon as they were off the line, they were already back ordered. That's how popular graphics cards are for miners. Gamers are were really pissed because the miners had snatched them all up before they even knew it was out. So, and it's because they're able to handle high hash rates. Don't ask me what a hash rate is. That's something I should have researched before doing this podcast, but that's okay. And they also have dedicated RAM, often in the 6+ gigabyte range. And I just heard like a GTX 3080, I think, just came out. I'm gonna have to look that up, because that's some serious power. I don't know why we need the power that big now. I mean, there's some really awesome looking games out there now. I mean, Cyberpunk 2077, it just looks amazing. But I honestly thought we had really kind of capped out on the graphics thing. So I'm gonna have to see what the difference is. Maybe it's just they're producing them because they know the miners will buy them. If I had to make a guess, that would be it. But they also put out an i9 processor that's ridiculously expensive, but can just... It basically turns your gaming computer into a supercomputer, which I think actually an i7 might do that anyway. We've come so far from the old, I remember back in the late 90s, Apple put out the Macintosh G7. I think it was a G7 and G8, and you couldn't export them because they were classified as supercomputers, or there was a limited exportation because they were classified as supercomputers. So, yeah. The computer I'm playing this game on could run circles around that one. And I'm not ragging on Apple for that. I got plenty of other things to rag on Apple for. It's just that's how far the technology's come. So, okay. I've actually been through all this. So, here's the thing about crypto, and I think this is why a lot of governments are very nervous about it. Crypto can be used for above board and below board actions. So what do I mean by that? I can use my crypto to purchase the heretofore mentioned glass of water. I could also use it to go on the Silk Road and buy drugs. Well, not Silk Road, but a Silk Road-like website. And people have. They absolutely have. And the FBI actually seized a large number of Bitcoin from Silk Road when they shut the site down. There's some really interesting stories behind Silk Road, and I'm trying to remember who did... I watched the video, and I'm trying to remember who did it. Because he did a really good walkthrough of that whole thing. And you know what? I'm going to take a moment and try to just quickly look that channel up. Because he did an amazing job with it, and I want to make sure I'm giving credit where credit is due. It's very important to me. See if I can't find it. Quickly look one more time here. It's probably not going to be here. A shame, really. Nope, I can't find it. That's fine. But I would look up just Silk Road and the first crypto exchange, and he does a good layout. The guy's British and just does a great layout of it. You know what? Let me see if I can't search that real quick. Silk Road and Bitcoin. Here it is. Ordinary Things. That's the name of the guy's channel. Ordinary Things. Jeez, how could I forget that? It's like the most... It's like the easiest name ever to remember, and I forgot it. Good job, Julien. Don't even know what name I'm using today. So, yeah. So because of this, I know a lot of governments are really nervous about it. I know a lot of governments have said it's blanket illegal to use them in their countries. Others don't. They're heavily regulated. They're essentially illegal, even if they're not outright illegal. In Russia, you can own Bitcoin, but you can't. You can own crypto, but you can't use it to transact because you can only purchase goods and services using the ruble, which I find a very interesting law. It's like, so if I come there with dollars, I have to exchange them before I can buy a bottle of water, or else I'm in violation. Now, I'm sure that that's not like an iron cast law. There's probably some flexibility in places like airports or around ports, but still, that's a very interesting law where all goods and services must be transacted through the ruble. And that might have come from when the ruble was worthless. Okay, so what is crypto really? How is it viewed by authorities? Now, I live in the United States, and so I'm going to use what the U.S. does. Please check with your own nation, if you are not from the United States, to determine how crypto is handled where you are before you get involved in it if you haven't gotten involved already. I would hate to hear that someone who watched my podcast went in and bought crypto and then were in violation. So the IRS is probably the most proactive of all U.S. government agencies. And with the efficiency with which the IRS moves on new developments, I really wish the rest of the U.S. government had this ability, because if they did, my government would be so much more efficient. We wouldn't spend nearly as many dollars. The IRS quickly went in and classified crypto as property. Now, some of you would think that's pretty obvious. Others would scratch their heads. And if you wonder, if the people who think it's obvious wonder why the people who scratch their heads are scratching their heads, it's because currency is not classified as property, per se. Not in the same way as, say, a stock is. So, the way that the IRS, I believe that's the case. I believe that's fact check me on that. Someone can correct me on that. I mean, I'm a money guy, but even I don't know exactly how currency per se is handled. But because national currencies are fiat, you don't get capital gains off of it. You do with crypto. If you're in the United States and you have crypto and that crypto goes up in value, once you exchange it for US dollars, you have to pay capital gains tax. Once again, I am not a financial advisor, nor am I a tax advisor. Please see both of the preceding before making any decisions. I have worked in both fields, but that doesn't mean that I am the best person to give advice. But the IRS does define it as a virtual asset. Isn't that familiar to all my Entropians out there? So, as a virtual asset, you have to pay capital gains off of the realized gains. That means as long as it's still within the digital asset, you don't have to pay anything. Once you cash it out, then you have to pay something. So for those of you wondering if you're not paying your taxes properly on all your digital assets here in Entropia Universe, don't have to worry about it until US dollars come out. Then you pay your taxes. And it's on the capital gains rate, not on the income rate. There is a difference. And this is how rich people get so fucking rich. Because they don't have to pay as many taxes because it's all on capital gains because they're smart enough not to hold it in dollars, they hold it in assets. For those of you curious, the US also has a virtual currency law. We do. And it's regulated by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission for the most part. And what that means is they treat it like gold and silver property. It's essentially a commodity. It's a gold or a silver, which is why I used the allegory earlier for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Other things that would fall under that category are oil, which interestingly during the pandemic actually dropped below zero. Well, dropped to like nothing. There was a time that I could order barrels of crude oil from China for 2 cents a barrel plus shipping. The reason I didn't? What the fuck am I going to do with crude oil? I don't own a refinery. Of course, I could have sat on it and just waited for it to go up and then try reselling it, but I don't even know how to do that. Kind of liked the idea, though. I was like, I could buy all this crude oil for like 2 to 4 cents a barrel and then sell it to refineries and get triple my money back when it goes up to 6 cents. Minus shipping, which is thousands of dollars. I don't have the money for that, nor do I have the know-how. But I thought that was very cool. Well, no, it's not cool because you don't want oil to be that low ever. But it was an interesting thought. Let me rephrase that. So on top of all that, getting back to our original topic, some cryptos, depending on how they operate, might be classified as a security. XRP from the Ripple group fell into this problem. And it might be because of the way that Ripple issues XRP. It can be classified as a security. Currently, that's being fought out in U.S. courts. I don't know how that's going to turn out. When I first heard about it, I thought it was a nothing burger. But after looking into it a little bit, it might get classified as a security, in which case it's subject to securities laws. Which means Ripple's in a lot of trouble if that's the case. And I know there's a lot of people out there, some of my friends included, who lost a lot of money to it. So hopefully, I'm really hoping it goes back up, at least to the point where they can sell it and get their money back. And to be fair, this isn't necessarily on Ripple. Yes, they might have been in violation, but I don't think it was deliberate. I think it was, we've come up with this new way to create a cryptocurrency. We're going to create this new crypto called XRP. I know there were a lot of people who are very bullish on XRP. And put it out there and see what happens. And XRP got up there. It was like 71 cents a token. Which, obviously, that's not Ethereum or Bitcoin, but for a relatively new crypto, that's not bad. And then the SEC stepped in and said, sorry guys, pretty sure that this is a security. And then all of the regulations dropped on them. And I know that like Coinbase is no longer trading them. So I'm curious to see where it goes. It might mean that XRP is finished, or it might just mean that they have to change their business model. And again, I'm hoping that all of the people who gambled on XRP and saw a huge loss, I'm really hoping that you get that money back, or if you traded out of it, that you did it into something that did gain over the course of the January 8th spike, so that you're not in the hole. because that's not good. And it was not through any fault of your own. And I really truly honestly think that Ripple did it in good faith. But you can do things in good faith and still be in violation of the law. So hopefully the SEC sees it that way. Maybe they work with the Ripple organization to help the people who did put their money into XRP expecting it to be a currency, even though it may turn out to be a security. I'm just hoping it turns out okay. So what does all this mean? Well, here's one thing. The Federal Elections Commission has stated that you can legally donate to campaigns using crypto. No, I am not soliciting donations. So what that means is the U.S. federal government really is recognizing it as a legitimate means of exchange. Because the one place the U.S. government does not dick around is in elections. So because of that, and the FEC is anal retentive. Okay, trust me, the FEC is anal retentive. Okay, the number of rules that I make sure I follow is nuts. So because of that, that means that crypto's only going to grow. Virtual currencies are only going to grow. How can I tell? Well, I'm looking at my balance on my PED card in this game, and oh, that's a digital currency because this is a real cash economy game. Yes, to all of you who are not Entropia Universe players, you're not here for the Entropia Universe part of it, or because you've been a fan for a while, maybe you saw me on JD Green's podcast. This game is a real cash economy. The money in the game has real world value, and I can withdraw those funds and turn them back into US dollars, paying appropriate capital gains tax if my cost basis is overrun. This is why I keep extremely careful records of every penny I have ever put into this game, to make sure that if I ever go over the amount that my cost basis, I will get those capital gains, or I can claim it as capital losses. And that's pretty much what you're going to have in this game is capital losses. They're not going to be huge unless you deliberately put a huge amount of money into it. But there are ways to make money in this game, such as digital land ownership. I'm not going to get into the reads about what this is. I will probably do a whole podcast on it because, I haven't done a Julien McBain show podcast on it, but broadly speaking, I've probably beaten that particular horse to death and then some. But I strongly recommend, if you're curious about what I mean by all this, sorry about the microphone, just Google search Entropia Universe. Or look at some of my older content. So yeah, crypto and digital currencies are only going to get more and more common. And I know that MindArk at one point was working on like a PED ATM card. I truly think that's eventually going to be the case, even though they've been kind of slow on the uptake on that. I would not be surprised if we eventually, over the course of the next 1 to 2 centuries, move away from paper currency and move to a strictly digital format, possibly all on blockchain, all on crypto. I know that a lot of governments are looking at creating their own crypto. That kind of makes me nervous because they might try to ban other cryptos. Governments tend to do that. But by legitimizing it, we know that it becomes a good means of exchange, which means it gives people confidence in it. And confidence is everything. Confidence is the reason we're able to exchange pieces of cloth, dollars, for goods and services, because they have the confidence that the dollars they receive, they can then turn around and spend for other goods and services. People have a lot of confidence in crypto. If they didn't, it wouldn't be as high as it is. Because of that confidence, I can go to people who do trade in crypto and say, hey, I want to buy this off you. Can I pay you in Ethereum? And they're probably going to say yes. Now, I remember back in the day, I really wish I had been one of those early adopters. I worked for a bank when it really started to become big. And because of the rules around it, and I did not want to fall under conflict of interest, and we weren't sure what it was, I didn't do anything with it. And that was my mistake. I probably would be I would be out of debt at the very least. Because Bitcoin was trading, I think, at like $10 a coin back when I was in banking. When I started in banking, that would have been insane. If I had bought $100 worth of coins, I'd have $400,000 right now. But, you know, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Looking back, things like that happen. But there's a lot of confidence in it now that they didn't have back then. And so because of that confidence, the use of crypto, the use of digital currency, organizations like Mindark, or the Virtueverse team, they're only going to grow. And so I would strongly recommend you keep an eye on them. If you don't, I'm not necessarily saying put money into them, but keep an eye on them so you understand them if and when they become the standard. And again, will it happen in your lifetime? I don't know. I can't guarantee it. In fact, I'd probably lean toward probably not. Will it happen in your children's lifetime or their children's lifetime? There's a much better chance that will be the case. So how does this kind of dovetail to how we, you know, things moving forward? I've mentioned before, I believe we're in a cyberpunk dystopia. I am working very hard to bring us back to some semblance of normalcy. And if you don't believe it, I'm sure that constituents are out there scratching their heads over this. A lot of the things we see today are things that we would see in the old cyberpunk novels in the 70s of the 70s and 80s. It's not a one-to-one allegory. It certainly isn't. And we sure as hell have a lot more freedoms on the outside than we would have in those books or video games. But there's a lot of allegories. So finally, about a year ago, I'm like, okay, yep, it's a cyberpunk dystopia. That's okay. We'll just navigate it. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this podcast. It's also why I decided to run for office for my Vermont viewers, to help navigate through it. Oh, hi. So with that, do your research. Do your research and make an educated decision on what you think the best move is. You'll get no judgment from me. That's for damn sure. So, there's a long road ahead. The next 2 years are going to be very, very interesting. And I mean that in the old proverbial sense of, they say it's an old Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times. Well, we are certainly in interesting times. Do I think that it's going to be a time of darkness, the dark winter that Joe Biden talked about? Quite possibly. I certainly want to mirror Governor Scott's, my state's governor is Governor Phil Scott, his words that we've got some tough sledding ahead of us. And for my non-Vermonters, sledding is what we call snow machining. So no, I'm not talking about getting into the little toboggan and going, no, we're talking something with a motor on it. I do think we have some tough sledding ahead of us. And that means we've got to look carefully at what we do and what our options are. And so I hope that you all take care and you consider things and you make a logical decision on what you wish to do. And if you have anything to comment, please drop comments. If you know more about crypto than I do, drop a comment down below. I would love to know what you have to say about it. I have had people ask me to talk about crypto in the past. I think it was pretty much long overdue. And it was fun. So yeah. Brain freeze. As I always say, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. And as always, I appreciate the support, and we'll see you in the next one. The Julien McBain Show is a McBain Manor production. I'm your host, Julien McBain, a.k.a. Paul Vallarn. My moderators for live shows are Kat J. Lambertson and Captain Aubrey. Thank you so much for your assistance. I would not be able to do this without you. And thank you to my patrons, Red Kryptonite, J. Lambertson, and Spectrum 3600 for all of your support. Without whose support, this would be so much more difficult.